Hey there, everyone. This is Mystic. You can call me Angel. Welcome back to my channel and the 150 Script Challenge. Why are you here? Well, I'm diving into these scripts not just for entertainment, but also to grow my skills as a writer. Because as creatives, no matter where you are in your journey, there's always room to build, refine, and challenge ourselves. And also, I actually enjoy reading scripts just as much as I enjoy reading books. Before we get started, I'm gonna go ahead and do just a little housekeeping here. I love this community that we've built here. I appreciate every single one of you for dropping by to hang out with me here. Thank you so much. If you haven't already, I'd appreciate it so much if you would subscribe to my channel to support the work I'm doing, like this video, and leave a comment if you will. And in terms of comments, I want to say that I like to create this as a safe place for writers and creatives. I welcome debate. I welcome different perspectives, but please, let's keep it kind and respectful. I always give you the same grace if you disagree with me, because what you hear are my opinions as I work through these scripts. We may not always agree, but that's part of the fun. The debate is part of the fun, and there's no reason for arguments. So be kind, be nice, have some grace, and treat each other with respect. Okay, housekeeping is on the side there. We're gonna go on to script number 10 of the 150 Script Challenge. And it is October, and I did make a commitment to have a little more chill and a little more horror in the titles that I go through. So today I am going to do A Quiet Place. Quiet Place is a script. It was released as a film in 2018. The writers here are Bryan Woods, Beck, John Krasinski. It is a horror survival family drama. Spoiler alert, we are going to be analyzing a script, so we're going to be talking about the film. So if you haven't seen the film and you want to see it before we go through this, you want to stop, go back, watch the film. I will put a link into the description where you can go and find scripts yourself if you want to go through this exercise with me. And finally, I will be following the script, not the film. So there's always a little change here and there as the director interprets, the actors interpret. There's always differences. So please don't come at me if there's anything different from what you remember when you watched the film. All right. So I always start out with why I chose this film to analyze on the script. I saw Quiet Place. I enjoyed that film. I thought it was very well done, and I was really impacted by how little actual dialogue was in the film. So I was very curious about how that translated in the script. I feel like it pushes the limits as to what one can do with the script because it focuses us on thinking, silence being used as an action versus dialogue in the environment as the characters engage. And though there are these mysterious creatures, there's not a lot of attention. You only see them a few times. They're only engaged with them a few times. It's about the environment, it's about the characters, and it's about their survival in this world that has been created. So that's why I chose the script. A quick story recap. This is about a family that survives in a world hunted by creatures who kill anything that makes a sound. They live on a farm. They are surviving through careful silence, rituals of protection, using sign language. You get the feel that there is a family member that has need of sign language, so they all have learned sign language. And the family unit is very connected and you're very caught up in that survival. But when the mother, Evelyn, her pregnancy, she's pregnant, comes to it near its end, silence itself becomes nearly impossible because you have the birth, then you have the baby. So that's really what the film is about. So let's get into the breakdown. You'll hear me shuffling papers because I got to go through all my notes. I have lots of notes on this one. So I'm going to go through my heart of the story, full analysis is what I call this. And I always start with the act structure overview, the way I see it. And the opening scene is really powerful. You find the family scavenging a local store in silence. It establishes the rules of the world for you. No noise. The characters are actually barefoot. The children are cued not to make any noise. The youngest son is drawn to a toy that makes noise. The father tells him he can't have it, but his little sister gives it to him anyway, though she takes the batteries out. He sneaks the batteries back in. At some point in time, he turns on the toy, tracks the creature, and he is eliminated. And the father and the family are impacted by that. Flash forward into the future, we go to the inciting incident where the family is struggling still after the young son's death, and the guilt is being carried both with the daughter and the father, who are both blaming themselves. The daughter because she's the one who got the toy, and the father because he's the father and he's trying to protect his whole family. So it's the struggle that comes up, and for me, that kind of was the inciting incident. The plot point one that I pulled from this is the pregnancy. You find that the mother is pregnant, which forces a whole different view of the world. How can you deliver a baby in silence? That's kind of crazy. Or midpoint, Evelyn goes into labor early while the creatures are closing in, and the family is split apart. She's got one set of the family over here, the children are over there, and she's kind of by herself while she's about to give birth. The plot point from there is Lee's sacrifice to save his children, which is really, it was really an intense moment in the story. And then the climax is when Regan discovers the feedback from her hearing aid can repel the creatures. And the resolution, Regan and Evelyn prepare to fight back, armed with sound and a weapon. So sound is a weapon, and that's how it goes off. Just like they're standing there ready to go with their weaponry, which is sound. I found that really interesting, that the silence was the mood, but sound was the weapon. And they had it with them all the time. So the protagonist in this story is the father, Lee. He wants to keep his family safe. He will do anything to keep his family safe. And with the loss of the son at the beginning, that was kind of amped up on steroids. So all his focus is to protect them. The last thing he says to his wife is actually he would protect them at any cost, always protect the family, always protect the children. His obstacles here is silence itself. It's silence, keeping everyone silent. That is a challenge. That is a major challenge, especially when you're dealing with children and then your wife is going to give birth. How are you going to keep this infant silent? The creatures, of course, are an obstacle. His grief, how he's fighting just being paralyzed in this process of grief and having to try to keep his daughter close to him because his daughter is distant because she's dealing with her own guilt and grief. And then the transformation from controlling, being a protector who is always trying to control, don't do this. He's very controlling in the way he wants to protect his children, to letting go, releasing the guilt, releasing everything. There's a heartbreaking couple moments, and we'll go through that when I go through the heartbeat of the story. And the connection that he has with his daughter, it shifts because she goes from a guilt-ridden child to inheriting his leadership and his need for survival as he gives himself so that she can live. The antagonist, of course the antagonists are the creature, but I also believe that silence also is an antagonist because they have to fight everything to remain silent. And I felt this watching the film, but reading it, this script was so different from scripts I've read before because the dialogue is so minimal. And so you are reading it in silence. The character, you're not engaged in characters. You find yourself in a space where these people have to fight everything. Do you know how much noise the human being makes just by nature of being a person? Chewing, walking, breathing, everything we do make some kind of noise, and they have to fight that, not even in themselves as adults, but for their children. And so silence is an obstacle for me. The conflict, you can't live in silence forever, as I said. So the antagonists are just waiting. They are just waiting. And how this is the mirror, like I like to find the mirror, is the family's inability to communicate other than sign language. There is no mirror for them to feel and see the outside world. All they have is each other and the creature that is drawn by sound. So the mirror for them is just literally the outside world is reflected into back to them through these creatures. Very powerful. And I always want to find the hero's journey in every story that I read. So, the hero here, of course, is Lee. His call to adventure is when his son is eliminated at the beginning, and it forces him to amp up his guardianship of his family, making sure that their silence is deeper, making sure that he's protecting them more. The refusal, he tries to hold tighter and control rather than adapt. And that is something that I found. This was really interesting to me because there wasn't really adaptation. He didn't evolve the situation. He just pressed harder in the situation when we move forward from when the son was eliminated and then the family in the future. The mentors here, I believe the teaching, Lee was trying to prepare his son to be the protector. So in terms of kind of the classic mentor situation, Lee didn't have a mentor. Lee was a mentor. So that made it kind of interesting. I mean, you can say that his wife was a little bit of a mentor, but she wasn't really. She was really there, the caregiver of the family, and she just told him, protect. She wasn't really there to help him. Nobody was there to help him, so he wasn't able to really cope other than just being in a space of he had to do everything to protect, so he just gave himself. Was really tragic. The trials, had some trials. There was the pregnancy that they had to deal with, the scavenging quietly, which was wild to me. Living a farm life, being constantly vigilant not to make any noise. The transformation of passing on the torch from himself to Regan, because he built these hearing aids through the entire story. He was just evolving these hearing aids to help his daughter hear. And the last one that he developed turned out to be the one that was the weapon. And then the return, the family found a way to fight and found a way to survive because of the weapon that he gave them. So the primary themes, to me, the cost of protection. You have to be willing to give everything. And that's exactly what he did. Communication with a family for survival, spoken or unspoken, that communication being vital. Grief and guilt, reshaping love. Key emotional beats for me. Of course, the youngest son being eliminated at the start set the rules in blood for the story. It's not every day you read a story where the children are the victims, and this one started strong. Evelyn being able to give birth to a child silently, man, I have given birth, and I can tell you, I that was hard to even read. Like, wow, this is real. Lee and Regan had a thing happening because of the loss of the son at the beginning. And Marcus had a point where he was questioning Lee. It was a really good scene. They were by the river and they were able to talk, because as long as there's a constant noise around, you can make small noise because they can't hear it or something to that effect. So they were able to talk. So had this really brief moment of communication, father and son. And he's like, are you mad at her? Do you still love her? And he's like, of course I love her. And he says, well, why don't you tell her? So in the moment where he couldn't get to his children in time or do anything to save them, he screamed so that the creatures would come to him. And the last thing he said was, "Regan, I love you." And he screamed it. And that was crazy. I felt that when I was reading it. I felt that. And then Regan's hearing aid giving feedback. What was really interesting for me was they had it the whole time. And she didn't like it because she turned it on. It didn't quite work. So she kind of threw it off to the side and just carried it around. If they had turned it on earlier on, it would have been, they would have seen that it would have worked, which is the beauty of the story, because it worked the moment he gave it to her. And we wouldn't have gone through all that had she turned it on and used it before. So that was kind of interesting. Symbolism, silence, the key to survival, being silence and emotional distance. That was an interesting psychology that they used there. A lot of paths, sand paths, dirt paths, a lot of little paths that they went through. The hearing aid being that connection into salvation. They had a lot of family rituals and family games, trying to communicate normalcy through all this craziness. Think about the heartbeat, the connection here is family. How survival isn't just about living through the monsters, but about getting through it, bridging the silence between each other and connecting. And then that emotional climax for me when Lee sacrifices himself and Regan discovers the weapon. One life giving and one life stepping up. It was really, really well done. It's devastating and empowering at the same time. And I'm a horror girl and a sci-fi girl. I read a lot of stuff. And I'm always impressed when a story is written so well that it makes me feel it. And when Lee sacrificed himself, I felt it. I really felt it. So the key craft lessons that I found: dialogue is optional, but storytelling isn't. They use the environment, actions, imagery to create really great storytelling. And I love that. Making the rules of your world clear as quickly as possible so that the reader or the audience can stay with you and doesn't have to try to figure things out as you go along. The toy spaceship at the beginning showed us everything we needed to know in one scene. And then remembering your premise as you write. Every choice must honor the premise, from the sand paths to little pieces in the game. That silence dictated everything. Always remember that. That was really good for me. And then letting weakness become a weapon. Regan's hearing aid, because she couldn't hear, becoming the path to salvation at the end of the story was just absolutely brilliant. And anchor horror in the family. The monsters matter, but the relationships make us care. The fact that I have read and watched and engaged in horror stories where a character died. I'm like, well, I'm sure glad they're gone, or I didn't really care. I was broken when Lee sacrificed himself. So I really enjoyed that. So in terms of my personal reflection on this script, boy, this script made me think about restraint a lot. And it had me asking, what if you stripped your story down of dialogue? What's left? And for me, I had to think about that. I think I rely a lot on dialogue. Sometimes I maybe too much. Sometimes there's time to be silent. And this script was silent almost the entire time. And I loved that. So it also reminded me that theme, arc, emotion don't have to have words to land. It forced me to ask, am I learning too much on what the characters are saying rather than what they're doing? And how can I reflect on that in my own craft? So at its heart, A Quiet Place really for me was about how love survives through silence and how connection can turn even weakness into survival. And it was not a poorly put together story. I really recommend you reading the script and understanding how these writers were able, or this writer was able to put together a story that just really clicked and really brought this tale to life for the folks that had to act in it and create it and direct it. It was beautiful. Okay, so again, not quite 20 minutes, maybe I almost got there. So thank you for surviving the silence with me on A Quiet Place. We're gonna keep this theme of horror through the end of the month going. So again, I appreciate you spending some time with me. I hope you had fun with me, and I hope this was helpful. Please subscribe to my channel. Please like this video and share. And let me know if you have any other suggestions for future scripts, or if you have any questions for me. I have so enjoyed connecting with you on this, and I look forward to our next time together. Thank you again, and have a fabulous day. Bye-bye.